Next up is our mechanical tip with Steve from Cisco's.
Hi, I'm Steve from Cisco's. We're here today to talk to you about final drive ratio or gearing. You may hear people at the track talking about, oh, for this track I'm going to go up a tooth on the back or down a tooth. Depending on the type of track you're on, be it motocross, supercross, sandy, loamy, hard packed, you may have to adjust your final drive ratio or your gearing. This is done by using different size front or rear sprockets. In this case we have a 49 tooth sprocket versus a 52, and as you can see the rolling diameter is greater or smaller depending on the case. The easiest and cheapest way to adjust a sprocket is to use the front. A front sprocket's worth somewhere between $15 to $30. A rear sprocket's probably worth somewhere between $50 to $100. The easiest way to adjust your gearing is to use just a front sprocket because obviously it's a lot cheaper. But to get a finer, more accurate adjustment, you will have to use different size rear sprockets. The way to work the ratio out of how many teeth on a front sprocket is worth how many teeth on a rear sprocket is to divide the rear sprocket number of teeth by the front sprocket number of teeth. So in this case, if we were using a 52 tooth rear, we'd go 52 divided by our front sprocket, which would be 13, equals 4. So 4 teeth on the rear is equivalent to 1 on the front. If for instance you were using a 14 tooth front and a 49 tooth rear, you'd have your 49 divided by 14 equals 3.5. So that would give you an idea of approximately how many teeth you are moving on the rear by adjusting your front sprocket. If you were going to go trail riding, you might want to run a 14 tooth sprocket on the front as opposed to your 13. Your 13 tooth will give you faster acceleration out of the corner but less top end speed. Your 14 will obviously give you a higher top speed with less acceleration out of the corner. The reverse is equivalent for the rear. If you're running a 49 tooth on the back, that's what you might use for a wide open motocross track or in this case trail riding. Or if you're going to use a 52, you might use that for a tighter motocross track or maybe supercross. Depending on which way you wish to gear your bike, you can gear it to suit different gears in the gearbox. That's getting a little bit technical and we'll go into that later in the show. Now after replacing the front sprocket and you're finding that, for instance, on a certain track you can't get out of a certain corner, in third gear is a little bit too tall and second gear the bike's revving too much, you may have to adjust your rear sprocket, this is what we meant by fine tuning, to suit, to get halfway in between the 13 and the 14 tooth front sprocket that you've used. If you're finding your 49 all of a sudden won't allow you to get out of the corner, you may want to go to a 50 or a 51, which will give you a split difference between the 13 and the 14, which will allow you to get your acceleration back and still have your nice wide open rev range of your motorcycle to use on the more open tracks. And another thing with sprockets is sprocket wear. If you actually have a look at this sprocket here, you can see that the teeth are quite badly angled and some of them are starting to chip off on the edges. That's a sprocket that is well past its use by date. If you lay a new sprocket over and compare the angle of the new teeth versus the angle of the old worn teeth, this sprocket is stuffed, the chain's about to start slipping on there and you're going to go nowhere fast.